We're going to be basically diving straight into that. The bulk of the show is going to be devoted to the Champions Cup final, and it's the one that many people have been waiting for years. We have Leinster Saracens in a somewhat neutral venue.
We're delighted to announce also that the Overlap Rugby podcast will be sending its first reporter to a Champions Cup final.
That's exactly right.
Myself.
Him, not me.
May, put the notebook and pen to one side for it to be having a few pints and a few yells at Leinster. And
you could bring the notebook with you and do some stuff as well. That would be nice.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? I don't know if any of that's going to happen.
Reflections on it afterwards, but
maybe stranger things have happened.
Yeah, this is it. But yes, he's going to be at St James's Park, which is where it's all going to be going down. And yeah, Leinster v Sarries, which we kind of got a curtain raiser to it last year in what I kind of consider the de facto final, even though the final itself was very competitive and it's like not selling Racing short, but I kind of figured the winner in Dublin that day would go on and win the tournament, and so it proved, which in that instance was Leinster. But home advantage was a big thing.
100%
bagging that try early on was a big thing.
Yeah.
Setting Sarries off on a kind of off-kilter start where they have to chase a game, which is something that they just very rarely have to do.
They were quite good in that game, though. They were defensively very solid.
There were periods towards the end of the first half where they were really getting on top in the collision zone as well, despite Leinster's pack being phenomenal. Like Sarries' pack or something
Leinster's
else.
Scramble D saved them quite a bit in that game.
Yeah.
And Saracens were just a little bit exposed. They've done a very good job all year of keeping their defensive shape very wide, maintaining their width no matter what in defence. Wingers are hugging touchlines that you can't get outside them, and Leinster went through the middle of them ultimately with a cute little play between Levy and Ryan.
Yeah,
and
the pick and jams
broke
were
the back of the game
as well. It genuinely, the Leinster did their homework on them and kind of moved them around. But it was a probing, interesting game where they're two very, very clever, very, very good sides, and head and shoulders above what else is in this tournament, barring maybe Toulouse.
On their day in
France, which I think like Toulouse still have. Like there were some threat coming to Dublin as a Leinster fan. Like you were quaking in your boots, thinking about all that can happen coming over. But ultimately, they're not as mature a side as this Sarries side are.
No.
And I felt like even when Sarries were coming to Dublin last year, they were a little bit off. There were things like Billy Vunipola wasn't quite in form, or he was just back.
They were not in the same position that they are this year.
No,
they
or the
really
ones they had been in the
like,
years where they won it.
Yeah.
But like this is all going back the last few years, so this whole squad now is very much mature. And even we were watching some of the Premiership stuff from the weekend, like they're very similar to Leinster in that like when they have a match day like they had at the weekend just gone, Leinster obviously didn't, but you see like they're in finals mode, so all their main players are on the touchline and you see their B team and it's stellar, like, and you're thinking like we were saying we forgot they have like the likes of Marcelo Bosch in their ranks to bolster the centres because he doesn't get game time in the first team, and it's a scary prospect. And they're very, very efficient in what they do. Their shapes and patterns have been kind of implemented over years now.
It's eerily similar to what Leinster looked like. I mean, initially there was a little bit more when they were bursting onto the scene. Leinster were sort of more in Matt O'Connor years, and when Leinster rediscovered their flair in 2017, that was very much more loosey-goosey. It's very much more heads-up rugby going on. It was just about, getting the skill set going and getting and sticking passes and playing attacking rugby. And then last year it matured into a more settled system, and this year has been similar. But Saracens now look very similar to Leinster. I mean, we talk about clashes of styles in big games. These two teams play very similar brands of rugby. They break teams down in similar ways. They can go multi-phase. They can go strike. They probe you and keep you thinking and keep you honest in defence, but they have no issues holding the ball for long periods of time.
They have capable kickers if it's good. If it becomes about points accrued,
they can take it to a power game. They can chip over penalties. They both have very solid set pieces and line out drives, and they can hold the ball on you. They can pick and jam, or they can score quick tries with their backline moves, and they're happy to do any of them. It's very much watching them attack. Watching Leinster attack, I guess, can be a little more like in that Toulouse game in January in the RDS. There was a purpose to it to break the back of the Toulouse defenders, to hold the ball and kill them, whereas Saracens, all the time that they're attacking, they're probing for weakness, really, and they're looking for that hole. They're comfortable holding the ball but they are looking to break the back of it.
Putting the likes of Farrell in that decision-making role where he has 3 to 6 options sometimes if he fancies the 40-yard pass or the kick as well, and it's normally he picks the right one when they're in flow and when they're winning contacts and moving forward in that little kind of swarming flow that they can get going on, where it's just a tide that comes across, and it's like only through good line speed. We saw in the semi-final Munster managed to stymie them
Chris
for
Farrell
a half.
was sensational.
Chris Farrell was sensational. The 13 channel is going to be key, which Ringrose is very often a good reader of the game. Henshaw, Ringrose, both very good defensively off the ball. They'll need to be because the shapes they'll be presented with are full of deception and speed and power.
Yeah, and options. And then they flood certain channels, like that Rhodes try was a classic of just flooding the one channel with three players
into a two defender channel and pick the right pass.
They make those reads seemingly independently but very quickly, and then attack and isolate where the space is, and they're just very, very good at doing that. So it does become a game of stopping them at source, and line speed and read making is massive in defence.
True.
And from Leinster's perspective, huge areas in where to shut down Saracens. Their initial carry game, I mean, they have a load of big men doing big men things. You're going to need that tight 5 to step up. I would definitely lean towards, you have your Ryan and Dev in the row, but getting Scott Fardy in there probably from the start.
At 6, which worked very well against Toulouse.
It did, indeed.
That little balance that we're looking at Sean O'Brien this season and thinking he's probably not quite reached the heights that he had, but his best game of the year was definitely that Toulouse game where he had Scott Fardy and Jack Conan there. It was a good little balanced back row to it. They complemented each other pretty well.
They all played very well.
Which is going to need to happen again. Because you're looking at the Saris like Rhodes and Ray are in great form this year, and obviously Vunipola is a barnstorming carrier offloader extraordinaire, and then you look in their rows and you're seeing Cruz Itoji. Like Itoji goes through periods in games, 10-minute phases in games where he's literally unstoppable. It happens like seemingly every time he takes the field.
A lot of that work on Billy and Billy and Itoji, it's double team work or James Ryan work for Leinster. I mean, James Ryan's going to have a lot of serious defensive job on his hands around those fringes just to stop and force back Saracens. The back row and the Fardy, Fardy's quite an in-tight guy, but you do need somebody up in Farrell's face. I don't know who they're going to nominate to do that. Obviously it sucks that there's no Josh and there's no
this is it. They're lacking a 7 for that, which is actually it's interesting because both sides will be probably lacking an out-and-out open side. It'll be a final without an out-and-out open side flanker in it, which is interesting. Could mean there'll be a lot of multi-phase.
And I think Levy was very much a difference maker in that win that Leinster had over Saracens in last season's competition. So it's a curious one, and it just makes the task for Leinster's defence in terms of stymieing what Saracens do in attack that more difficult, because they're going to need somebody to bull rush Farrell, but also that the jackal game probably isn't going to be there to the prominency that you would like it. And so it becomes a game of, as Munster did, stopping them behind the game line. The problem that Munster had in that game is that they just couldn't maintain their discipline when they did it. I mean, they shut down Saracens.
And they couldn't score tries. That's a failing that I don't think Leinster will share.
No. But I mean, in terms of what their defensive work was doing, I think Saracens had 9 or 12 points at half time when they had been shut out by Munster, and it was just silly. All of the penalties were not enforced. They were just silly penalties. So if Leinster can model themselves on that and just hold a bit of discipline, that's where you start getting a winning combination.
Because Saris can speak endlessly to their credit, but they do concede a few penalties. That's actually it's in their DNA to do so as well. Their discipline isn't as tight as I would.
When they're put under pressure, they do.
It's very rare that you see a Leinster side slip up discipline wise and give up a load of penalties. That being said, it has happened a few times this year. Leinster's squad rotation has meant there's been a few stop-start performances a lot this year, more so than Saris, even with their
100%. We were very sceptical of where Leinster were at, especially just post Six Nations, and how deflated a lot of those test players were right up until that Toulouse game, where Leinster, as they do, book national trends and put together a stellar performance.
But if you're looking at form guides into this, obviously a final separate, so you don't know, but the last game Leinster played was a rather tame defeat with the B side, obviously up in Kingspan, whereas Saracens send out their seconds against Exeter and absolutely put them to the sword.
It's a good picture for Saracens.
It is.
The last game that the Leinster firsts played was that game against Toulouse, and that's crucial. But it does have the addendum that it was back in the comfort zone in the sense that it was a game in Dublin
it was
against the French side,
yeah,
which they're very comfortable winning. They know how to go there, but they know how to go to finals and win as well. That's in their DNA.
Well,
as
like
well.
Leinster have yet to lose a final in Europe anyway.
And some of these guys, Johnny Sexton and Rob Kearney, have been there for all of them.
Yeah,
4 from 4 in European finals, and looking to make it 5 from 5. I mean, they have, and you can see the Leinster teams go to the sort of
place.
bank and the history, the archives of where they've been and what they've won in those big games and finding big moments.
It's one of those kind of form is temporary, class is permanent kind of arguments, and it rings true when you're looking at a Leinster team.
I think it'll play to Leinster's advantage if it's tight and it gets to late in the game.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think that'll be where Leinster may see it out, as they did last year, and just find a way to get over the line. I think they're more likely to do that than Saracens. But I think the bigger question is what happens in that first 60 minutes. What picture are we left with 20 to go? I mean, there's so many different interesting battles. I mean, we were talking yesterday just jokingly, like, if you were to pick a mixed Saracens and Leinster team,
who would you pick?
You start straight away with Loosehead and you're stumped.
Yeah.
Because you have Cian Healy, who is, for my money, the best Loosehead perhaps ever to grace the rugby world with his presence.
Yeah.
And then Mako Vunipola, whose improvement this year from a pretty healthy base has been insane.
Well, his in the loose play has always been phenomenal for Lucy, but his scrummaging is what's impressed me this year. Yeah, he's always been. There's been question marks about that, certainly in my mind, where people have got the better of him in that area before, and it seems like a conscious effort on him to grow in that area. And whereas with Cian, like, he's a monster in that area.
Yes,
and he has been taking names for years, and longevity wise, he's been around for the better part of a decade. Yeah, doing so.
Indeed, but in the context of this game, you have two just phenomenal loose heads, and listen, as good as Tadhg Furlong is, John Ryan is probably he's not as bulky a man nearly as Tadhg Furlong, but he's the best technical scrummager, I would say, in Europe. And I've never seen him sort of manhandled the way Mako manhandled him in that semi-final, and it really did hurt Munster. Yeah, just John Ryan going backwards in the scrum is not a healthy picture for them, and it's not a usual picture for them.
No, it's not.
Indeed, he came on at the weekend against Benin and proved just how useful he can be. Yeah. But against Mako Vunipola, there was one winner, and he's been nominated for European Player of the Year, and I think I'd favour him to win it, just because
props never win
it, and his level of improvement in his performance is huge, and that is a colossal battle, because Tadhg Furlong is someone in the scrum who uses his weight to enormous effect, but Mako's a heavy chap as well. I mean,
they kind of cancel each other out on that front.
It's going to be interesting.
Strength then, because like obviously Tadhg Furlong has that quirky farmer strength.
He does. And I was nervous about Tadhg once upon a year in his scrummaging, but he's been pretty flawless this year. Yeah. But it is a step up in challenge from Mako. Like he's going to.
Well, it's the weight in that pack as well is something else. Like you're getting driven from behind by Cruz Itoje, and then off the bench at 60 minutes comes that big monster Will Skelton as well. So it's like, and their whole back row is huge. The Sarries are a bigger team. That's one thing that's true. Yeah. So if Leinster are a little bit off, the collision zone will be won by Sarries, and that's going to be inevitable. Like this is where, like, if it's tight, that's great. I think I agree with you that's great for Leinster. Leinster will probably be the ones to find the break, but both teams are of such a calibre that if one of them's a little off, either one could grab a 2-try lead very quickly. It's not going to be like the Munster game where it's tight for so long because of just the way Munster approached the game entirely. Like Leinster won't approach the game that way, so there's bound to be a little bit more space on the field, just because of that. So it could be a case of one try or one team grabbing a couple of tries and then the other team having to chase.
Yeah, but even last year, which was like that when Leinster took a lead, like Saracens had big moments and fired some serious shots. Yeah, and it was Leinster's scrambled E that kept them in it, and then you would expect something similar no matter who takes the lead. Like it's not going to be 80 minutes of one-way traffic. They're too similar and too good all over the park.
It's such a fascinating. I'm so glad it's the final of, and I think it's been a great tournament this year, to be honest. Like if you just think reflections on how they got there, the two semi-finals were great in different ways, and both teams showed their class, showed the distance basically between them and the rest of Europe in those semi-final performances.
Seeds 1 and 2 as the year started,
and proven so. Bookies kind of know what they're on about in some of these things. Like Munster did very well, I thought, to get to a semi, all things considered.
Toulouse's stock has risen dramatically.
Toulouse has been like nothing but progress. They actually remind me of Leinster's campaign 2 years hence when they had to go to Clermont, didn't quite get it, got caught early on, and they couldn't do it. But a young, exciting team with a lot of potential. So like Toulouse could be genuine contenders next year. They were already genuine contenders this year, but like if they continue that rate of growth, if they manage to close out the top 14, they could be genuine rivals next year. But this was a year too soon, and it's Leinster Sarries have been head and shoulders the best teams in the comp for the whole season. When you think back to Sarries going to Glasgow before Christmas and shutting what was a very dangerous and buoyant Glasgow team, still is. Like when you look into the form they're getting into come finals mode, like they're fire really, and they were coming into that with loads of good form. In the Pro 14 as well, top of their conference, going into
they played about as well as they can play in that game, and
only scored 3 points
at home,
which is something
that's what something that doesn't get, like, it used to get talked about a lot with when Jacques Berger was in Saracens, and they had the whole Wolfpack identity going on.
Him and Scalp Brits, shooting up out of line.
Yeah, it used to be all about like that Wolfpack defence, and but it's sort of eased off as we've just seen the silk of their attack and Farrell dictating what they do. But their defence, even against Munster, was against admittedly a limited attack, was pretty sensational. Their line speed, like everyone gets away with offside, so you've no issues with it these days. But their line speed is seriously, it shuts you down, and it creates an interesting picture from Leinster's perspective in terms of what Leinster are going to do with the ball. You know, they're probably going to pick Luke McGrath, which stymies their ability perhaps to move the ball quickly. Obviously they've a lot of potential in that back line, but they are a team, and Johnny Sexton's an out half who likes to have a bit of go forward before he goes and does his thing. He likes to see his pack moving forward to give him that bit more space for it to move the ball. And then if Leinster are going backwards in those tights, if Saracens are getting out and shutting Leinster back and driving them back, the instinct is to kick, and then you got guys like Alex Good and Liam Williams back there. You're just not going to find space.
No,
they're too
or grass.
Yeah, they're just very elite coverers of the field and catchers of the ball, and then counter attackers when they get it. So it's that's a dangerous picture for Leinster, and it creates an interesting dilemma for what they do with the ball. How do they exit? What do they want to?
They want to be getting the ball into Jimmy Lowe's hands as fast as possible by going sitting Sexton slightly deeper, getting wider. Possible.
I
do
think
they
probably,
want to, or do they want to be doubling back inside with little inside balls and try and keep that defensive line a bit more honest? A lot will come down to Brad Barrett, whether he can play or not. I hope he can.
I think he can.
He only managed a half of rugby against Munster before having to go off.
That's right, actually.
And he was brilliant in that half and very physical, but it seems like the years have taken
it on for him though. He played well.
It was Tompkins.
And
Tompkins has been great this season. But anytime they start Tompkins, that defence that you're like really complimenting, there's a slight softness to
and that's on the outside the 13 channel.
But I think I'm pretty confident in putting Brad Barrett as one of the reasons there. Like, Brad Barrett doesn't get anywhere near enough praise for what he does for that team, but like his defensive work and just the physicality with which he does everything, like on and off the ball, he's
technical as well. Like he smashes guys, but you never see Brad Barrett make like a crazy shoulder charge,
or he doesn't run head first into a knee very often. You know, like he's very technical, but also very physical. He understands the need to be, even when he's probably carrying a little bit of niggle, he still gets stuck in there, which is kind of similar to, if you think Issa Nasiwa, thinking more parallels between these two teams. Issa Nasiwa last year from 12 was patched together like the Bionic Man, but was still putting in ferocious hits, even if he could only manage 30 minutes in a game. But it was like he's a big club man for them, and I think his presence there kind of glues everything together in that back line and really does make their defence near impenetrable unless you're very, very accurate and sharp. And that's going to be the challenge for both. It's going to be a matter of who gets that in the final, because we've seen, even if you think to last year, like Leinster's attack was phenomenal all year, then got to the final and kind of stalled. So it's very hard to even take precedent from what's come before going into a final, which is something all of its own. And it's going to be about who arrives there on the day more accurate and determined.
From Leinster's perspective with the ball, it's got to be either attack that 13 channel instantly, as you say, get outside of that blitz, or if you're carrying in the tight, you got to be smart. You got to pick runs off each other, and you got to offload the ball. It's crucial. I mean, that's where Sarries break games up, is that they get Itoje and Billy Vunipola in those channels, and even with Ryan on them and getting double teamed, you get the feeling that they're going to get their hands free in this it just shakes up the defensive line a little bit if you can get a quick
Well,
off.
it's very hard to have line speed or any kind of press when you're watching that and half expecting a break to come any second.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's very hard to get off the line with any kind of commitment. And as soon as you're not doing that, then Farrell's picking these great passes with these great shapes. So it's, as you say, a probing attack that's designed not necessarily with strike moves off first phase all the time. It's more about a sweeping multi-phase that's pulling you this way then that, inside then out,
just testing for weaknesses and then finding them inevitably usually. And without a turnover game, it becomes, from Leinster's perspective, very much about line speed, double teaming the right guys. But then when they do have the ball themselves, they're going to need to respond, and they're going to need Leinster players to step up, and somebody's going to have to take that Billy Vunipola role, get it into the contact, get the hands free, be a danger. And certainly that was a recipe for success for them in the fringes last year, when Saracens were trying to shut them out, and instead Leinster went back inside them. Saracens do have a better line speed this year. They're more aggressive in defence this year than they were last year. Last year they were very much all about sweeping and
getting width. Whereas as we saw in the Glasgow games this year, apart from the first one, the other two Glasgow games that they've had, madly enough, but they were caught out wide a few times, which wouldn't have happened last year.
Exactly.
Against last year we were saying, and actually it kind of rang true in that first game as well, that Glasgow, despite being a quality team, them going up against Sarries is like the worst matchup for them. Sarries are just going to hold their width, and there's going to be nothing for them out there where they want to go all the time, and so it proved the first time. But then the second few games, obviously, like a little bit of chop change. They had Alex Good at 10 a few times. They had a few little rotations.
They have noticeably adjusted what they're doing with their defence.
Yeah.
Perhaps in part because of that Leinster game and how it did expose them in the narrow channels, and maybe because of one or two losses against Exeter around the turn of the year. Yeah. That probably just frustrated them a little bit. They've decided to solidify
narrow. Yeah.
And then,
well, for such a big pack, it's probably frustrating to be leaking kind of forwards tries in those areas, I'd imagine. So yeah, they probably want to shore that up. Also, you don't want to be rewarding Exeter's tactics with yielding any tries, as they showed at the weekend. Their B team shutting them out, turning them over, and grabbing tries.
It was an excellent and scary look of a team that's focused and in control and in form, and it's a dangerous prospect for anybody.
That's where, like, being Leinster fans as we are, it's been very hard to make head nor tail of this year. A lot of the time, like, we haven't been seeing the A team in action at all, so it's just been a rotation of not quite full B teams, but just different teams, which means different looks all the time, and good performances, bad performances, shaky results ever since but it's all coming from a place of being top of your league table, secured outright with weeks to go. So and getting into the business end of the season where everyone else is do or die, and you're just throwing the B team out there. Like, obviously that's going to yield,
and to be fair, like,
a few losses.
That game against Ulster, I think, was the Ulster kind of got away with one, really. Against
True. There was a drop goal there to be a approach, but
I thought there were a couple of refereeing decisions as well. I thought young Leinster probably did enough to win that match, but it's been a different approach from Leinster, in part because it's a World Cup year, in part because you lost a guy like Issa. You're still in this limbo land with the three imports. The replacement of Issa in Joe Tamani hasn't really panned out, so they've just had to throw a bunch of young guys in, and the national guys are being protected. I mean, they don't want Johnny Sexton playing really more than 1 or 2 games a month, and he hasn't. But we all, and this is what they lean on, is that they know when it gets to finals footy, they can have all the time in the world to prepare and they can come out and play very well, and it just seems to work with Leinster. I'm yet to see it. We haven't seen in a very long time the picture of that not working in a really big game that really matters for Leinster. And while we did get that picture in an Ireland jersey, I'm curious to see what it'll look like this week. I mean, it's definitely the toughest. It's definitely the best team. Like, it's not been the most difficult run for Leinster to a final, but it's the best team that they've faced in a final for sure. Northampton, Ulster, Leicester, and Racing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And the most challenging they found, between Leicester, which was 2009, so that's a completely different era and team, but the Racing game last year was the shakiest Leinster looked all that year.
It was to a poor standard, in fact. It was like they did shut us out, but the game wasn't played to a high standard. And
which can happen in finals. Happens a lot.
I just
two good teams with nerves.
The quality of these two teams, and like if one team plays badly, the other team will get on top of them. Is my
Get that
suspicion.
feeling.
Yeah, but there are huge battles all over. I'm very curious to see what happens at scrum time. Very curious to see if anyone will blink at line-out time. Obviously, that's
I think that's more likely to be Leinster than
I think so
Sarries,
too.
to be honest.
Whereas
Whereas I think the scrum is probably the other way around, just because I'm backing the Cian Healy factor to be aggressive at scrum time.
And they have this lad at tight head Saracens. What's his name? The Setsy Island guy, or Vincent Koch, or both of whom can be got at. Probably, what's his name?
Lamasatele. Yeah, he started against Munster and did scrummage very well. But it's just Cian Healy's a different animal entirely. But that being said, I still think the most likely
set piece malfunction on the whole game is probably Leinster's line-out.
Yes,
but that's why.
I also think the most likely results, rather than malfunction at all, is just solidity in that area for both teams, because we've been working on it now for a whole year, and you know, like both teams appreciate a final enough to be trying to get those fundamentals right. And then it will come down to who blinks first. In some of these exchanges, are the centres going to be capable of shutting each other out? Like, both have challenges. Henshaw was back for the Toulouse game, looked really good with ball in hand.
Yeah, it was massive. I mean, that James Lowe try that Leinster scored,
beautiful try,
off the scrum. That was like, we rave about Saracens' attack. That was as accurate an attacking set as you'd see from even any test team. I mean, it looked sort of like All Black stuff.
10 phases from a scrum in the midfield. It was on the 10th phase that James Lowe crashed.
And all of them were just perfect. And it was actually quite Saracens, but it was probing and it was good. And Cian Healy got the ball just in a semi-wide channel for a little bit, and it looked like he was he had one defender dragging off, and another defender came sprinting in to shut him out, and he just got an offload away, and they just kept going and picking the pressure. And then, rather like Saracens at the end, Toulouse had Leinster had whatever it was, a 3-on-2, and the first Toulouse defender just shot up on a man, and Leinster, I think it was Luke McGrath, picked the right pass to Sean O'Brien, who put Lowe in, and Lowe obviously beat the last man as he does. And will do again, even when presented with Liam Williams. That's a matchup that Leinster, as good as Liam Williams is with the ball on the ground, not in the air, I think that's a matchup that Leinster will like.
It's true. Whereas on the other wing, to be fair, Larmour didn't actually get as much space. We didn't play him in as much as we did Blow against Toulouse. He had to, whenever he got the ball, he had like one or two players to beat, and he does amazingly, like wins contacts just with footwork. But we weren't really playing him into danger, into space. So maybe on that other wing, Sarries will fancy their chances. You don't know. They're both, they cancel each other out very well. A lot of this team. I'm curious to see how the centre dynamics go, because Barrett Lazowski is quality, as well as Henshaw Ringrose. They're both international calibre centre partnerships, and it's going to be who's winning contacts in those areas, who's actually managing to shoot and shut out the attack first, if we are more effectively, I suppose. Because that'll be down to those 13s, I would imagine, a lot of the time. If they're like going through multi-phase, I'll imagine there'll be many a moment that looks very dangerous until there's a proper shoot that stops everything and goes back to square one. And that was Chris Farrell in the semi-final.
He was brilliant. He was brilliant. Has been for a while. And Gary Ringrose will need to replicate some of that form for sure.
And he's not the physical player that Chris Farrell is. He does make good reads, but he won't be hitting with anywhere near the same.
My instinct tells me that you will get some aerial battles. Are we going to get the Liam Williams or Alex Good versus Rob Kearney matchups in the air?
They're also elite in that area. This is like all, you go through the whole team sheet and then you're talking attributes.
Every aspect of rugby. I mean, elite level scrummaging, elite level lineouts, elite level mauls. Probably not jackling. There's no pocock in there.
That's the only thing that's missing is like an actual number 7, like a genuine 7, and Leinster have 2 of them and they're not there.
That's a huge factor. Huge factor. But all over the pitch, attack, defence, this is very high level stuff. High level sides going against each other, and they play so similarly, so it is just a question of which defence can withstand which attack and which defence can't, and
that's where you get the feeling either it'll be a tight one or one of the teams will get on top, and it could end up being...
I think both. I think one team will get on top, but it will end up being tight, if you know what I mean. It'll just be like, that's 6 points better probably from somebody. My instinct says Saracens to win it. I know that there's a load of factors at play. Leinster obviously with such a great finals reputation. I just think the little thing that Saracens have that Leinster don't have is just that offloading game in the tight and the way that they flood channels, and I just think Leinster may struggle to deal with it, especially with the power that comes on for them in the second half.
Maybe so.
Big games needed for Fardy and James Ryan to shut
all of that out.
Yeah.
True. And then you're talking the likes of Jack Conan having to have a big game in the loose as well.
And listen,
kind of
he's been dynamic in those channels, in the narrow channels as well.
Yeah.
He's not getting too wide, but he is busting through those narrow channels, and that's a winning picture for Leinster.
He'll be against bigger men.
Yeah, who are less tolerant of that kind of behaviour.
Yes, like against French sides, he always seems to play remarkably well. Does Jack Conan seems to have a field day?
But even the best French sides can be dopey around the fringes sometimes.
Always, yeah. Whereas generally, even mediocre English sides do resource that area. Like that tends to be where they are. So I don't know. My instinct possibly says, like, it's a curious one. I think on finals on the day I would probably back Leinster, but if I'm looking at all the precedent this year, I'm saying that probably Sarries are the team that are edging it as far as who deserves to win.
But it's certainly the cleaner picture. But so was Toulouse.
So
Toulouse was the cleaner. They had been on this journey. They've been putting all these performances together. Leinster have been all over the place. Last time Sexton played for Leinster was the previous calendar year, where he was terrible against Munster and lost the rag. I mean, he's had this awful Six Nations. None of the omens were there. But then the Leinster players clicked into gear. They all got finally they're all on the pitch together. All of these players with such history, all of these top class players who can beat the All Blacks comfortably on their day, showed up and played accurate football, and Toulouse couldn't cope. And there are very few teams. I've never seen Leinster hit their high flying straps and have a team cope with it.
No, I've yet to see that.
Yeah. And then Saracens could be the team.
It could be. Well, it's a final we've been waiting for so long, and head-to-head wise, Leinster have the edge. They've 3-0, but 2 of those 3 were against
different era,
a completely different
the only meeting of these two teams, Mark McCall v Leo Cullen,
was last year, and it was in the Aviva.
It was in the Aviva,
which
Dublin
makes
helps Leinster.
all the difference in the world. So this in St James's Park. Who knows? It's anyone's guess.
Who knows? It is anyone's guess.
But I do believe it's going to be the highest quality showing of rugby in the tournament so far. Because how could it not be? They're 2 amazing sides. So come on Leinster.
Come on Leinster. Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you want to subscribe, there should be a button up here. Don't forget to give us a like and share with your friends, and please leave comments down below. We love the conversation. Thanks.